The following is a rebroadcast of the Newark City Schools Board of Education's most recent general monthly meeting.
You can do that for now.
Call this meeting to order of the Newark City School District Board of Education. We're meeting Monday, October 8th, 2012 at 6:30 p.m. at Legend Elementary School. Jeff, call the roll, please.
Mr. Blind?
Here.
Mr. Bybee?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Harden?
Here.
Mrs. Nickum?
Here.
We have a quorum of 5.
Now, Mr. Bybee will lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Why don't you please stand? You know, in less than 30 days now, our country is going to be faced with a pretty important election. And if you're like me, I got personal phone calls from Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. And, you know, if you watch the debates, it just appears from all the argument going back and forth that nobody can do anything right and everybody's got the right answer. And through this time, it kind of reminds me of a quote I heard one time from Abraham Lincoln. He said, you know, as much as cats love to fight, there sure are a lot of kittens running around. And if you stop and think about that, you know, the freedom that we enjoy in this country makes us great. And we have the freedom to say what we want to say, and it just makes a special time of year. And so I hope you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And now Mindy Vaughn will present a report on the strategic plan.
Good evening. We had a successful strategic planning session, and so I want to give you an update. We took a little bit different approach this year, so each of you have a copy of this at your place. We would like to thank the strategic planning members that were with us for the day, and I see Tom. So if there are any other members in the audience, Maura, yes, Denise was here, Barb. So we'd like to say thank you. They gave us a day. We were due up for, and Tom and Seth, sorry, keep pointing, I'll get the rest of them, and Dan and Doug, Jeff. We were originally, because it's a 5-year renewal, we were originally slated to have another 3 days, and we knew that that was way too much time. So we were going to do it in 2 days, and the more that we started planning, the more we found that people were even struggling to even be able to commit to us for 2 days. So we had a jam-packed filled 1 day, but we were able to accomplish everything that we needed to in that time and revise the plan. So as we go through, the strategic planning session this year, we met September 12th at Newark High School in the nice new professional development room they have upstairs, the big room. We took a little different approach. Instead of looking at everything that was in the plan, we retained the belief statements, the mission statement, the vision, parameters, and objectives. Every year they are looked at and they're tweaked. Last year there were a couple of changes that when they made the change, it went back to the way it was originally. So instead of, you know, going back and forth with the commas and ands and thes, we kept all of those things the same because the real meat, all of those things we all agreed were important, that those were the things that really drove what we did. And so we really then focused on what the strategies were. So we started with an update on federal initiatives, state initiatives, changes in law, requirements that the district has to follow, and then all of the district initiatives that we had in place. And so we updated the team members on all of those things that were going on, and then we went to look at the strategies and said, reviewing the strategies, let's look at the 3 questions. 1, should we keep it as it is? Do we need to keep it and just revise it? Or does it need to be kept at all, and can we just remove it? And so that was the task that the team was given, and each group worked on one strategy. And while they were also discussing their strategy, they looked at, is there anything else that needed to be added that would give us some direction that the district was not already doing? So, excuse me. So with that, we kept the belief statement as is. I'm not going to read it to you because it hasn't changed. Go ahead, Brian. We kept the mission statement. That also did not change. And the vision, that we accomplish the mission of the Newark City Schools. Again, we kept all of these things exactly the same as they were before. The parameters of what we will always do and what we will never do. Making sure that everything that in the district that we do falls under any of those items. And our objectives, that we're going to graduate 100% of our students, that we will have all of our students perform at or above grade level, achieving excellent with distinction, and meeting AYP. So then we looked at the strategies. And when we looked at each individual strategy, I'm going to take you through in a minute the changes under each strategy. They kept all of them but one. The one strategy that was deleted was developing and implementing individual success plans for every student. And the reason that it was deleted was when we gave an update, one of the things that the district has in place is a response to intervention. And so it's looking at each student's performance over time, and it gives the students who are not meeting and exceeding where they should be, it gives a plan in place, it gives interventions. It really does give them that individual plan, not as originally slated by the strategic planning team, but it does have that plan in place. And so that was the one strategy that was removed. All the rest of them stayed but were tweaked slightly. So if you'll look at the next one, the words that are in red are the things that changed in the strategic plan. So for the first one, we will develop and implement a plan to assure all students graduate. The first three pieces were originally as that they would be implemented, and so they changed it to continue. We will continue district-wide preschool activities and all-day, everyday kindergarten to address early learning needs of all students. We will continue to develop a district-wide network that connects students, parents, and staff to community resources, eliminating barriers to student success. Continuing to use credit evaluation starting in April of freshman year to identify students who have earned fewer than the appropriate number of credits for their grade level. And they added two pieces, using the student learning style assessments to develop and implement strategies to improve academic success, and to continue to develop alternate learning communities to assure all students graduate. The next strategy, we will develop and implement ways to improve perceptions of the Newark schools. Again, the words in red are the things that were changed. We will continue a symbiotic partnership with the Licking County Realtors to promote Newark schools as a district of choice. We added for the next one that the community relations initiative would be through digital and print media to make sure that we were hitting both pieces of that. And then adding at the bottom, developing a strategy to reach people in the community who do not have a child in the school system. The next strategy, we will align resources and create partnerships to ensure the success of individual students. Again, we changed that we would continue a volunteer and mentor program at each building. And the second one was that we would revitalize the relationships with employers and businesses. There was a lot of conversation about whether that had been done or kind of gone by the wayside, and they felt important enough that it be readdressed. And then creating opportunities for students in grades 6 through 12 to explore careers through interactions with Newark business community. On the last one, developing and implementing a program to gather student input to ensure we meet our mission. That one didn't change at all. That was the same wording that was there before. On the strategy of adequate yearly progress, the first two, the wording was added totally. We will develop a district-wide system of data collection to be in place for individual students K-12, so that all data, we have a lot of information about students to try and create a system where it can all be located in one place so that it's easy access rather than having to go through all the student files and locations in multiple areas. And then utilizing data for each student in district AYP subgroups to identify areas of deficit and create individual strategies for intervention. And then the last two did not change. And the last strategy of developing and implementing a system to measure students' grade level achievement in all subjects. None of those strategy pieces changed as well. So we had a very successful day. We had lots of conversation, lots of good questions, and very pleased with the final product that the strategic planning team came up with. So, any questions?
I don't have a question, I've got a comment, and I really enjoyed that day. First of all, the collaboration that we had from the diverse people that we had in the group. My gosh, we had current students, we had students that had graduated from Newark High School, we had the business community was represented. It was just a good collection of diverse people with different thought. And my compliments to you and to keep this moving and to be able to accomplish so much in one day. As you said before, we used to take 2 days to do this, and I had a concern about whether or not we were going to get anything of significance by cramming everything into one day, but we did. So my compliments to you and again, the people that took time out of their busy schedules to be there to help us out.
I would just like to point out that Mindy leading strategic planning, in the past, we've had other volunteers, actually saves the district thousands of dollars in consultant fees and hiring professionals to come in and do this. So I really appreciate you stepping up and doing that for us. I also wanted to say that as far as revitalizing symbiotic relationships with employers, businesses, and community organizations, I think this kind of speaks to a couple of things. We have so many community and business partners, and I guess it's a well-kept secret. And I think it speaks to our need to really get our message out a little more. But it also says to me that we don't hear about these businesses doing it. They're doing it because they truly care about their kids, the kids in our district. They're not doing it to get a pat on the back or something like that. But so many, I couldn't even imagine how many different businesses we have that partner and do read with our children and take time each week and allow their employees to come and work with our kids in different community groups. It's really amazing the number of businesses and community members that help out in that way.
And Sherry Hottinger says that that there are even more out there that we just need to ask, so that kind of played into it as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Mindy.
Mhm.
Okay, we don't have a construction update, so to speak, but does anyone have any construction issues that either Mark or Dave could answer this evening? No? Okay, we'll move on to communication from the floor. At this time, anyone wishing to address the board can step to the podium. Please give your name and address and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Anyone wishing to address the board this evening?
My name's Liz Argyle. My address is 2453 Crestview Woods Court in Newark. I'm actually within the Granville School District, but coming more so from a business standpoint. My business is in downtown Newark. And I was at the auction over on the east main of the old school that has now closed, and heard that it was going to be demolished, and wanted to know a little bit more about that. I never saw it for sale. I'm also a real estate investor and had been a long time interested in that building. I had been watching it and saw, one school go in temporarily while another school was being built, and then just saw that the auction came up, and in talking to the staff there, saying that it was going to have the asbestos abatement and then be tore down. And I talked to a couple realtors today asking if it had ever been up on the market, and they said it had not. That some of the other schools had been auctioned or attempted to be auctioned off, but no amount had been agreed upon or that was accepted. I would just hate to have these beautiful historic buildings torn down. There's many ways that we can repurpose them for offices or apartments, and I would just hate to see it go and then have that vacancy within the downtown area for a decade or two that it would take for a new building to go up there.
Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you for your comments.
Mhm.
Anyone else wish to address the board this evening?
Hi. On that same subject, I wanted to read the resolution that the DNA passed.
Okay, could you please give your name and
Oh,
address?
Jody Miller, 168 North 10th Street, Newark, Ohio.
Thank you.
And I'm associated with the Downtown Newark Association. Our resolution concerning West Main Street Elementary and the old Newark High School Gymnasium, be it resolved that the Newark Downtown Newark Association at its monthly meeting October 2nd, 2012, by unanimous vote of the membership, states as follows. 1, the Downtown Newark Association is dedicated to the preservation of the Downtown Historic District, which is listed on the United States Department of the Interior Historic Register. Further, number 2, further, the Downtown Newark Association reminds the Newark City School Board of Education that both West Main Street Elementary and the Old Newark Gymnasium are located next to a contributing property, the Avalon, in the Downtown Historic District. 3, the Downtown Newark Association recommends that if the Newark City Board needs assistance in seeking an alternate use for the West Main Street Elementary Building and the Old Newark High School Gymnasium, professional assistance is obtainable from the Ohio Historic Preservation Office in Columbus, Ohio. The Ohio Historic Preservation Office has vast experience in conversions of abandoned school buildings into successful alternate use facilities. And 4, the Downtown Newark Association therefore requests that the Newark City School Board desist from demolishing the West Main Street Elementary and the Old Newark Gymnasium until further effort is made to seek an appropriate alternate for the two buildings. Whereas this resolution was passed by unanimous vote of the Downtown Newark Association at their regular meeting October 2nd, 2012. Signed, Jody Ann Miller, President of Downtown Newark Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board?
My name's Susan Galtieri, and my address is 854 Newark Granville Road, Granville, Ohio 43023. I'm here in support of the Newark Downtown Association also. Last year, I watched with utter dismay at the destruction of Lincoln Junior High School. I talked to the men tearing it down who told me that there was absolutely nothing wrong with that building, and it was torn down. I watched all that oak, the hardwood floors, the slate, all go down into a pile of rubble. The East End no longer. Can I just ask how many of you attended Newark City Schools? 1. And where did you go to school? You.
This typically isn't like a question.
I know, but he's a superintendent. I just was wondering where you went to school. In Belleville?
To Clear Fork High School and Ashland University, but I didn't know it was a requirement of the superintendent.
No, I have
to go to
reason to ask. But, how old is the school there, where you grew up?
I think it's really, just could you please limit your,
Newark. I wouldn't
Think
have any
comments.
idea.
Well, it's really old, and it's got a bell tower. It's a beautiful school. I doubt if you'd want to see it torn down. I doubt if your community would want to see it torn down. It's the same way with this community. I went to Roosevelt. My mother went to Roosevelt. My children went to Roosevelt. My mother went to the Old Newark High School gym. I think that there's all kinds of different ways to repurpose those buildings rather than have another empty lot like where North was, where Lincoln was. Now there's an empty lot. You were offered money. You said you didn't need the money for the lot where North was. Is that correct?
Are you asking me a specific question again?
Yes.
again,
That's
just
not my
please
decision,
continue.
ma'am.
You can make your, just
That's not
please
my
continue your
decision. North
comments.
property's not my decision.
Well, I know, but it was in the
You need to address
advocate.
the school board.
This is an opportunity for you to make comments to the board.
I am,
and it's not a-
but we're not-
it's not a
there's no
question and
exchange.
This is not a time for exchange, but anyone who wishes to speak, the board members are available after the meeting if anyone wishes to speak for them. This is just a time for us to receive your comments, not a time for us to respond.
Okay, well, I guess my comment is I wish that the school board would see the value in the history of our buildings in this community. There are a lot of us that attended them. We'd like to see them stay. We'd like to see them stay for our children and our children's children. My husband and I own a 118-year-old school in Columbus, Ohio. It's been repurposed. It's a beautiful building, and I wish that you guys would consider doing that for Newark City Schools. Thank you.
Anyone else
Bev,
wish to address the
I
board?
think it is appropriate to say we are going to be mentioning something later in regard to this.
In the
subject.
business section, we'll be probably talking about that, so.
Anyone else wish to address the board this evening? Seeing no one else, we'll move on. Treasurer's recommendations.
Item 2 A is approval of minutes of the Board of Education from the meetings for September 10th, 2012 regular meeting, October 1st, 2012 special meeting. Item 2B is approval of September 2012 financial statements and payment to vendors. As I would normally do, the general fund is at $17.8 million. Bond retirement is $4.7 million. Permanent improvement is $2.3 million. Building fund is $1.9 million. Food services is at $500,000. OSFC project local is at $2.2 million. OSFC project state share is at $4.6 million. Classroom facilities is $1.9 million. Other miscellaneous is $3.1 million for a total in our bank of $36.7 million. And that agrees with the bank statement from Park National Bank. Item 2C is approval of our 5-year forecast, which we'll do a PowerPoint presentation when I've finalized reading the rest of the items I have on my agenda, if it pleases the board. Item 2D is approval of settlement agreement with Joan Costo, which was in your appendix and also in my packet that I passed out to you. Item 2E is approval of a construction invoice. And item 2F is the supplemental appropriations resolution. Primary of importance on that, the largest item in there is the Ohio Clean Diesel School Bus Grant. I'd like to compliment the transportation supervisor for applying for that grant and receiving it. It brings $52,500 of federal grant money for doing work to our buses to make them burn cleaner diesel and improve the environment. Item on that was Title I and 21st Century is money that was not used in those two grants from last year. Item 2G is approval of fund-to-fund transfers. Specifically, from Fund 010 to 004 is where our money with all of the building projects we've had through the last 5 years has been underbid, and we are able to return $2,095,126 to our Fund 004, which is our bond levy fund. Item 2H is approval of change in student worker hourly rate. We normally keep in tune with that with the state minimum wage. So our rate will be going from $7.40 to $7.85 beginning January 1, 2013, if you should approve that. Now we'll go back to the PowerPoint presentation. On the right, to the right of the audience, to the left of the board, is a steady screen that shows the summary page of our forecast. And on the main screen, we will go through the PowerPoint presentation outlining exactly what the assumptions were in our forecast that if the board approves tonight, we will turn in as our most recent 5-year forecast. Next slide, please. Although our balances sound fairly hefty when I tell you that we have $14 or $15 or $16 million in our general fund, it takes approximately $4.9 million out of our general fund besides what we receive in grants to run Newark City Schools per month. Most of the months we will have around $14, $15 million in this forecast. The Ohio Department of Education would like for a district to have a minimum of 3 months operating balance, and that's currently where we're operating at, is very close to that 3 months balance in this forecast, for most of the forecast. Next slide, please. Line 1.010, which if you look at the slide to the right, it's the very first line, and we're going to go down line by line. If you want to follow that, and if you can squint and see it, that's as large as I could get to print right now. And if you're not able to see it on TV or see it tonight, it will be on our website shortly after this meeting, if not tomorrow or the next day. So you can go back to our Newark City Schools website and see the details that I'm talking about tonight, as well as the exact numbers, and take your time looking at them. And if you have a question, you can call me at any time at our office. Line 1.01, general property tax. That assumes that the May 2009 emergency property tax levy that was passed will expire December 2014. So from 2015, 16, and 17 in this forecast, I've made the assumption that our population, our voters, will pass that levy as a renewal at the very least. And so this whole forecast on this particular line for 15, 16, and 17 makes the assumption that levy will pass. If it does not pass, then you can back $5.8 million out of each one of those years, and you can see how quickly that we're going to go in the red as we go through this forecast. Because that levy generates $5.8 million per year, and we will definitely need it renewed. Line 1.02, tangible personal property tax. Last year, we received $991,481, and we have basically kept that level of funding throughout this 5-year forecast. Line 1.03, which is the third line down on that slide on the right, is the income tax, and we're projecting that it will grow at the rate of 3%, which is a nominal rate. Again, referring to a comment that was made earlier, I believe, about all of our politicians. Everybody hopes that the economy is bouncing back. We hope it's bouncing back to the tune of at least 3% per year. If that doesn't happen, then this line will change accordingly. Next line is 1.035, unrestricted grants and aid. What you see in 2012 and 2013 are the numbers that were given to us by the state government, specifically the governor's office, in our biennial budget. 2014 through 2017, I've kept basically flat, simply because you all read about it all the time. The volatility of the state budget depends on the economy, again, of the state of Ohio. So I'm assuming that the economy will stay at least equal to what it is. So if you go across that line for 2014 through 17, we've kept it pretty close to the 2013 level of $26 million. Again, trying to be somewhat conservative. The next line is 1.04, restricted grants and aid. This is the first year, if you go back to 2012, you'll see the numbers much larger than it is in 2013 through 2017. The reason the last 3 years have been much larger on this line, we were receiving stimulus money from the federal government, and we were receiving job ed money from the federal government. Last year alone, the job ed money was $1.2 million, and the prior years, the stimulus money was approaching $2 million also. So next year, this year, 2013, that money's disappearing. That's why you see the level drop down to more like the $250,000 range. Line 1.05, property tax allocations, basically have kept that flat, 2013 through 2017. Line 1.06 is all other revenue. We projected it at an increase of 3% per year, hoping that that will go up along with the economy and with our income tax. Line 2.01 and line 2.07, other financing sources, we basically projected flat. One point I want to make at the bottom of this slide is the forecast does not include receipts from the casinos. You will be reading a lot of information about the casinos generating X amount of dollars in this economy in Ohio. They keep talking about that a third of that money will come back to the Ohio schools. We hope it will come back. The last forecast that I put any stock in said that we should get about $650,000 in Newark City Schools, $650,000 per year. But in history says if you get it in one place, sometimes they take it away from the other. So I have chosen not to include, along with my finance committee, not to include any money from the casinos in the forecast till we actually start receiving receipts, and we can kind of count on where it's coming in at and make sure that they have not removed it from somewhere else in our budget. Line 3.01, personal services, moving to the expenditures line, which on that slide is the yellow section that we're looking at now, and this is the first line in the yellow section. Fiscal year 2012 includes payments for the EPC early retirement that we did the last 2 years. Line 2 and fiscal year 2013 is the final payment for that funding. Then the remaining years of 2014 through 17 shows a 2% step increases, which is built into both of our union contracts. And then we've added a 1% general wage increase for the school district in each of the years for 2014 through 2017. Note fiscal year 2013 is lower than 2012 only because of the payments we made for EPC early retirement that are now complete. Line 3.02, retirement insurance benefits. We've built in for 2013 through 2017 a 10% increase on our medical insurance premium, which is very conservative, but we work hard to keep this premium down, and we'll continue to work hard with our insurance broker to continue to keep this insurance premium down. Historically, it's been going up 16, 17, 18%, but we've been able the last 3 years to get anywhere from 0% to a 10% increase in our medical benefits premium. So we're hoping we can continue that trend. Line 3.03, purchase services, we've shown an increase of 5% per year. Line 3.04, supplies and material, we show increases of 5% per year. Again, with the volatility of energy, oil, gas, diesel fuel, utilities that we all experience in our own homes, we have the same volatility at school. We're not exempt from that. Line 5.01 and 5.05, other financing uses are projected at or near the same level as fiscal year 2012, basically keeping them flat. Issues in this forecast: uncertainty of the state budget allocations, which I've spoke about, uncertainty of federal programs. We're receiving less and less grants, and what grants are there? The funding is tighter each year. Renewal of local property tax before 2014 expiration, which was the first line that I mentioned. Recovery of the local economy to be at least the supported projected 3% increase in the income tax, and other market swings impacting utilities, materials, supplies, and fuel costs. If you go to line 6.01, which is the red line at the very bottom on that slide, what that line shows is whether we spend more cash than we take in each year or not. In this forecast, starting in 2013, we spend $714,000 more than we take in. 2014, we spend $1,990,000 more than we take in. 2015, we spend $4,094,000 more than we take in. 2016, we're $6,343,000 more than we take in. In 2017, we're at $8,788,000 more than we take in. As I've mentioned in my assumption, we have very conservative assumptions on what the expansion of our expenditures are, but this forecast shows that things are still going to go up gradually, which is happening to all of us, including our homes, and our revenue has not started to increase where we have a lot of confidence to show an extreme improvement in our revenue. What this results in, which couldn't quite get it on the slide, it results in a cash balance as of June 30th of each year. On 2012, we ended with $15,026,601. In 2013, we should finish with about $14,300,000. In 2014, we'll finish with $12,321,000. In 2015, we will finish with $8,226,000. 2016, we'll finish with $1,883,000. In 2017, on this trend, we will be a negative $6,905,846. In layman's terms, that everybody understands, if we continue with not improved revenue from the state and from our taxes and from the casinos, we will be bankrupt in 2017. That is why this board has the tough decision to make tough decisions on assets, such as Main Street School, such as they did on Lincoln School, such as they will on Roosevelt School. It is not an easy job. It's a tough job. And anybody that doesn't think it's a tough job, I'll be happy to take you through the numbers individually in my office at any time you want to call. I'll be happy to make time for you. But the problem is our expenditures, even conservatively and staying conservative with a conservative approach, is going to outstrip our revenue unless the economy takes an upturn very quickly. Summary: continue reviewing all cost versus benefits program. Continue to think out of the box. We've made a lot of changes that is totally out of the norm for schools to improve our position, both cash and also the education of our teachers. The one thing this board does, even though we are tight on money and getting tighter by the day, we're better than 90% of the schools in the state of Ohio, but they continue to make the right decisions for the education of the children in this district, regardless of the finances of this school. That has always come first with this board, and I appreciate very much working with them. Continue the attrition of jobs and restructuring jobs as employees retire, and continue to work with both unions on cost reductions. If there's no questions from the board, at this time, I would appreciate you approving all of my recommendations.
Do I have a motion to approve treasurer's recommendations A through H?
So moved. Second.
Kurt's moved, Thomas second. Any questions or comments? If not, call the roll, please, Jeff.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickum?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Superintendent's recommendations.
Okay, under personnel, item 1, retirements and resignation. I'd like to call the attention to, first of all, Brandy Young, who is a teacher at Wilson Middle School has an opportunity in Westerville to move on. We don't want to hold her back. And I continue to state on these that any staff member who wishes to get out of their contract after July 10th, if we feel we can find a suitable replacement, I'll recommend that. But I do want to state that there may be a time where we feel, and I'll give you an example, calculus, some upper science teachers, those kind of things, where that staff member, I may not recommend that they be released. So we wish Brandy well. Retirement of Sandra Wilson. We're going to ask Sandra to come in before she retires here at the end of the year. Has just done a fantastic job with our technology. Under 2, leaves of absence, we have no leaves of absence. 3 appointments and assignments. Also blank 4 supplemental contracts. The list that you have in front of you. And then the supplemental positions for the school year at Liberty are also listed. Supplemental positions for the after-school adventures program and after-school adventures substitutes. 5 is salary and position adjustments. 6 under 5 salary adjustments. I do want to note the STEP program at the bottom of 5 there towards the bottom. That STEP program, those teachers participated this summer where they go out into business and industry and work for a week. And so we appreciate what they do. They are compensated, but not at a cost to the district. We are reimbursed their total cost for that. And so that I wanted to call your attention to that. Tutors are also listed, substitutes, and under 8 other, there is none. So I recommend items 1 through 8 be approved.
I have a motion to approve superintendent's recommendations A, 1 through 8.
So moved.
Dan has moved, Tim is second. Any discussion or questions? If not, call the roll, please. Jeff?
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickam?
Yes, motion carries.
Under students and curriculum, B, call attention to special education contracts. A little discussion earlier with some of those contracts. Some of those we contract with students are court-placed in centers, and we have to provide their education. And so we do provide that educational service, and it's what the Hogland Learning Center is in Columbus. Under item 6, the last one, I did want to give you a technology update and let you know that we will be updating the board every month, particularly with not only the technology in the district, but preferably we want to cover the high school, where we're at with that. And I'm going to report to you tonight the MacBooks and iPads that were our teachers got a hold of those this summer, and we started providing professional development with our staff. And we're just barely into October here, and we can report to you that our staff has really embraced this. I guess they're their best friend. It seemed like they're their buddies. They always have them. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school, our staff provides some professional development for them. Plus on our 2-hour late arrival, we do some things. And so we're pleased to tell you that because of our network and some things like that and comfort level, we're going to roll these out. Wednesday or Thursday, we're on schedule in our opportunity school to start with some of those teachers, putting them in the hands of some students and those type of things. When they take them home, I'm not ready to report that yet, but at least we're going to put them in the hands of our students and start doing some things, some projects and those kind of things. Part of our project at the high school, the last part of our renovation of the, and I don't like to use the word library, the media center, the MAC area up there, where we are increasing the power load, the electrical part of that, to more help me out with the charging stations.
I know that they have installed a lot more charging stations, so kids can bring devices, but also too, for instance, if there were a professional development for high school staff, which would be about 100 teachers, all of them would be able to utilize their MacBooks in that area without
one of the reasons we're starting out small, we want to make sure that our system holds. We don't want to overload it early, so we're going to start out small and build up to it. And we're really excited, and I appreciate Dave and Mark Keith sitting back there on our project that we were able to, in the 12th hour of our high school project, say, hang on a second. This isn't where we put books for kids to come in like when it was designed possibly. We really wanted to change the part of that, and we were fortunate the OSSC is behind us in that, and because I continue to say, and I will continue to tell you, the day students bring their own devices is coming quickly, and we've already found out that with cell phones,
It's there.
it's tough
They
to,
just- you just
it's
don't
there.
know
Yeah, it's there. It's there. We're just not ready for it. Yeah, but we are working that way and talking. And I would share with you, as we talk at Wilson Middle School, about a technology person there in place of the person that's leaving us tonight at some point, you know. So we're starting to filter those things on down. And we you know, Ellen would tell you sitting here that she's already been looked at and said, hey, you better get ready for some technology education at Legend Elementary. And so we'll update you next month on how that works, but we're excited that the students are going to get these, and our staff is really embraced. And I will continue to say here, because I think our staff has really embraced the professional development of this, and our philosophy has been, if you're a 1, become a 2, if you're a 5, become a 6, and if you're an 8, become a 9. If you're a 10, help others out. And we just had, our high school staff has just been fantastic with that, you know, learning. And my goal, and I shared this with the staff last year at the high school, I want to learn how to tweet. I consider myself a 3.5 to a 4. And by golly, I'm on Twitter now, so now I'm not a 3.5. I bumped to a 4. And so all of us have to look at ourselves that way, and that's kind of what we're spreading. I know Kurt thinks a tweet's a 1 to a 2, but that's a 3.5 to a 4 in my book.
Just when you tweet a picture of the Newark High School football game, don't make it a picture of the Cleveland Indians game.
Well, I have to
I'll
tell
push
you,
ya.
I was at Pick North that night. Seth got on me right away. But I took a picture of the football field at the end of the first quarter. I was standing up in the stands, and it shows up in the library. So I pushed the first picture, and then I tweet that out, and everybody's sending this stuff back. And then I look at it up close, and it's like, oh my goodness, that's a scoreboard at Jacobs Field, Progressive Field. And so, hey, well, all right. But anyhow, you live and learn. Yeah. I did that on purpose to see who would catch it. But
Maybe it wasn't.
anyhow, I would tell you that Bev, I appreciated Saturday. Bev tweets the band performance stuff out, and we have Kurt is on there. Seth does some things. We try to at football games do that, and so if you're not following us on Twitter, you need to follow us on Twitter, and if you have that capability, and if you need any help, contact Seth Roy at the school, and we'll keep you informed of all of our events and those kind of things. So it's a neat thing. But we're excited. The students are going to get some of those MacBooks in their hands this week. So thank you to the staff at the high school for their
Doug,
work.
any unforeseen obstacles that, since we've been down this road, besides the network capacity issue that?
The network was the big thing for us, especially with opening up a lot of new parts of the building. We wanted to make sure that we didn't overload it and just crash, and then, we have some problems. I think it's technology, so I think what we really have to understand with technology is just take a step back and understand something's probably going to happen. We try to prepare our staff for the feeling of you don't always have to be the expert, because when you unveil technology to students, you're not going to be the expert. And it's just a matter for our staff to understand that and learn. That's part of that learning process. If you're a 3, become a 4. I didn't say a student couldn't pick you up that way. So our teachers that embrace that philosophy, I think will go. So, but it is technology. Enter it slowly in the comfort level, and hopefully, this is a success for all. It's already been a big success for our staff. So I think it's helping them prepare their lessons better.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve superintendent's recommendations B, students and curriculum?
So moved.
Dan's moved, Thomas second. Any questions or discussion?
Did want to mention, Bev, in regard to Step by Step Academy, just so there's no confusion, I used to be the controller there. I left 3 years ago because the federal government could provide some benefits they couldn't. No financial interest in it, nothing, but if someone knew I used to be, that's history now.
Appreciate that, Tom. Any further discussion? Not call the roll, please, Jeff.
Mr. Bybee? Yes. Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickam?
Yes, motion carries.
Okay. Under D, well, there are no gifts, but I would tell you one gift that's coming our way, once Jeff gets the approval that I mentioned tonight, or an awardance of a grant that I think is awesome, is Walter Lozinski's class received from the Licking County Foundation a $20,000 grant to purchase a van. And that's just awesome, because they are providing some food service over at Granville. They're providing some food at the high school, several markets around the area. They also, last month, I asked Walter, hey, it'd be nice if every month you had something for the board. Tom's taking a bite of a cookie over there. So Walter's class is preparing little treats for the board at night, and it's awesome, just awesome. So, but we don't have that to approve tonight, but I did want to bring that to your attention and compliment Walter and Jean Brown for their efforts.
We also have a wellness program through our health insurance too, just
Tom's
in case
not
you're
on, you're
interested
fine.
after the cookie.
Leaning back so you can't hear me crunch.
I would note, though, and I'm not sure about this batch here, but the majority of the things that Walter makes are, he sent away to, an example he'll send away is chocolate chip cookie to be tested, $150 a test to make sure it's a healthy treat. So he makes chocolate chip cookies that meet the health standards. That's how we can sell that stuff in our cafeterias, Granville and Newark. And so, but every now and then, I think he creates something that's like, there's no way this is healthy, but it's a neat program, wonderful for our students, so we
Glad they're
appreciate
healthy, I
that.
might have two.
Yeah. So, under D2, recommended the Board of Education authorize the treasurer to advertise for bids for the following project: a post-frame storage building.
Was that a tweet or a twit?
Oh, that, I will mention this. Ordinarily, when Jeff Quackenbush calls me, I'll pick up the phone, but the school board is a little ahead of Jeff here, so sorry about that. I should have silenced my phone. This is a post-frame storage building to be constructed at Newark High School, and that's right behind the Fine Arts Building, where we already had a building before the project. We tore the project down, or the building down, for the project, so we're just replacing their storage barn that was tore down prior to the construction.
Do you have a motion to approve superintendent recommendation D2?
So moved.
Kurt's moved, Thomas second. Any discussion? Not call the roll, please.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickam?
Yes, motion carries.
Okay, D5 then is awarding the contract for the Roosevelt renovation, which is basically the new ESC project. We have a presentation that we're going to do because we're not sure where the board's going with this tonight, so we'll have a little presentation, talk about the project on November 5th at the board meeting. But basically, I would share with the board and the community. Dave and I, about 4 years ago, went to Miller Elementary and stood in Miller and wanted to know what we should do with that. And our original thought was we ought to make our ASC here because we've kind of outgrown our building where we're at. Make our ASC here, and it's big enough even to bring a tenant or two in, and maybe there's an educational entity or somebody out there that would share in that with us. That progressed into, well, we can probably sell this building, a good market value. And so our architects were really high on the Roosevelt building. And so we went over to Roosevelt, looked at the space, and started talking about moving our ASC in there. Was there enough space in there for one group or some tenants? And so most of you know, because we've done this before the board meeting, we secured 2 tenants, the ESC, Licking County ESC, and also LACA, that would generate $100,000 to $110,000 a year, basically running the third floor with some shared space throughout the building. So that's what this project is. So went out to bid, and we did bid the actual renovation of the project with 3 alternates. Alternate 1, which is some excavation of the front of the property, to open back up that front, basically, where people would enter the front. I know when John Clem was there, nobody really entered from the front. They kind of entered from the side there. So that's alternate 1. Alternate 2 is the restroom, locker room areas down below the gym. One of the thoughts that we had here is housing our wrestling team in that building and giving them their own space. And then alternate 3 is some work to the coal bin in the back of the property. So, discussion.
Do you have a motion to award the contract for the Roosevelt base bid, including the 3 alternates?
So moved.
Second.
Tom has moved, Dan is second. Any discussion?
I just want to mention, I think last fall when we met, I was probably about the first board member to come forward and say, I like this project. I think it's an excellent concept, an excellent idea. As I expressed last week, I still have some concerns about a few of the costs in here. So when I vote no, it's not that I don't like the project. That's just my stubborn way of saying there's some things in here I don't really like.
Present. There's a pending action by LACA that is going to happen potentially Thursday morning. And so I'm in support of this proposal, but I would like to have the confidence that LACA is going to go forward with their action on Thursday morning. And so I would ask to amend this motion simply to make it contingent upon their lease terms and some extra items that they wanted in this project that I think we've talked to them about covering, which will bring the cost, our cost of the project down. So I would make it contingent upon that vote on, an affirmative vote on Thursday for them. But other than that, I support this project.
Okay, Kurt wishes to amend his motion to make this contingent upon the approval by the LACA board of the new lease agreement. Do I have a second on that amendment to the motion?
I'll second that.
Dan is second. Any discussion on that amendment? Those in favor of amending it to be contingent upon the approval of the LACA contract on Thursday?
May I call the roll on that?
Yes, please.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickum?
Yes.
Sorry about
I almost
that.
called her Mr.
So now
President.
the motion on the table is to approve the awarding of the Roosevelt base bid, including the 3 alternates, contingent upon the LACA board's approval of the new lease agreement. Any more discussion or questions? Seeing none, call the roll, please, Jeff.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
No.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickum?
Yes, motion carries.
We will let you know mid-morning Thursday. And I would mention that these contingencies that you placed in have been discussed. Jeff worked with LACA and Elise. I've stayed out of it because I'm a board member at LACA and will not vote and will not be in the room when they vote from that standpoint. But and then November 5th, we will lay out the total project for you with cost and those type of things. But I'm really excited about the possibility of, as we heard earlier, keeping a older structure and renovating that and This is something that we're able to do because of the savings that we've had with our OSFC project. Being under budget really helped us a lot. So I want to thank everybody who had a hand in that. I know a lot of it's market, but a lot of it's not market from that standpoint. And I keep saying Dave Altepeter has done one fantastic job of leading this OSFC project for us and that. So thank you, Dave. And he thought he was going to be done here, but Dave, it looks like you may have another year of that. So, and we're very excited for that possibility. So thank you.
Okay, move on to board business. Do I have a motion to approve the revised strategic plan as presented this evening? Tom has moved, Dan is second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please, Jeff.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickam?
Yes, motion carries. Now announce the intent to adopt board policies. It is recommended the Board of Education announce its intent to adopt the following policies as shown in the appendix, an announcement to be made that these policies will be available to the board, staff, and public for inspection in the Office of the Superintendent of Schools from October 9th, 2012 through November 5th, 2012. From the SALT Committee. File 2260.01, Section 504, ADA Prohibition Against Discrimination Based on Disability. So that will be available at the district office for review. And now, do I have a motion to adopt the following board policies? From the Personnel Committee, 1422.02, 3122.02, 4122.02, all dealing with non-discrimination based on genetic information of the employee. File 1460, file 3160, file 4160, all based on physical examinations. File 1623, file 3123, and 4123, all having to do with Section 504 ADA. File 3120.06, selecting student teachers and administrative interns. From the Finance Committee, 6152.01, waiver of school fees for instructional materials, and 6460, vendor relations. And from Operations, file 8142, criminal history record check for contracted school services. Do I have a motion to adopt these policies?
So moved. Second.
Kurt has moved, Tim is second. Any discussion? If not, call the roll, please, Jeff.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickam?
Yes, motion carries. Is any further board business this evening?
Madam President, we had some people make some comments during the public discussion section, and I would propose that we would suspend the abatement activity scheduled on West Main. I personally had someone contact me with interest in that project. The intent would not be to suspend it for any longer than it would take to determine whether or not we would have a potential buyer that could give us a good price on that property. I think that requires an auction, is that correct? So, but in order to do that, we would want to stop that abatement process that's scheduled, I think, to begin on Friday. And so I certainly share the concerns of people. We have these buildings are beautiful buildings, and if we can find somebody who's willing to buy these, I mean, I guess my concern stops. I have a responsibility to the schools that we can't just give these things away. But if we have somebody who wants to buy this and put it to a good use, and that comes out in maybe an auction, then I think we should certainly do that. So I would make a motion that we suspend the abatement activities that are scheduled for Friday.
Does the abatement process not have to be completed whether or not we sell them or not?
No.
You can sell it, right?
It's okay for me to speak. This, what was scheduled is what they call a pre-demolition abatement,
Right.
which is different than just an abatement. The pre-demolition is more invasive in the sense that less care is taken because you assume the building's going to be knocked down anyway. We've talked to different folks that have indicated if there was an interest in it, it probably would make that much difference because whatever they converted the building to, if they ever did, would be so invasive anyway that whatever they did to do that probably would make a difference. But it probably would, I would have to agree, or that'd be my opinion too, just stop this process at this point. There's no sense in going forward with that pre-demo abatement process, that if that could be put off, and then determine, maybe it'll be sold, or maybe it won't, and then maybe click that back in again and keep moving forward. But I made a couple calls today, and it was determined that they would start on Friday, at least kind of beginning to look around, and then on Monday, begin some invasive process a week from today. So there is time to stop the process.
So there is a different abatement process when the building is demolished as opposed to when somebody
As to when it's
purchased it?
salvaged and used for something else. They would go about it in a different way.
Okay.
Okay, so let me see if I understand your motion, Kurt. To suspend the abatement at West Main Street and advertise for auction?
That's my motion.
Can we do those as separate?
Sure.
Sure.
Do the
So-
suspension first, and then make a second motion of how you want to proceed from there.
So your motion is to suspend the abatement at West Main Street. Do you have a second on Kurt's motion?
I'll second it.
Thomas, second. Any discussion or questions?
I would simply add that I think it's fair that if we don't find a bidder, I'm all for demolishing this. I'm not trying to pick a sore with people. I'm simply saying that, we've seen old buildings that are not used properly, okay, and they end up becoming an eyesore for the city. Sometimes some of the best thing you can do, unfortunately, is to tear down a building and make room. But if there's somebody out there really interested in putting apartments up or making good use out of this, it's a shame to have that building go to waste. So that would be the intent for me in the future, just so I'm clear on that.
Okay, and just, if we would stop the abatement, we're talking at a cost of about 30 grand, right, to the district?
No, not that much now. There's probably less, part of the money's unknown at this point, and that has to do with the abatement company. That contract was let, and they were thinking, we're gonna show up on Friday, start to put up
This
yellow
Friday,
tape and lock the doors and start looking around on the inside and do something on Monday. That's a company that our school district and many other Central Ohio districts have used. They're very reputable. My sense is, my guess is, they're not gonna make a big deal of that. That's just the kind of company they are. They're gonna say, hey, we do a lot of business with you. If you wanna put this off for a while or not do it at all, we're not out here to just stab you and tell you, oh, we've invested $1 zillion putting this together and lost a lot of money. They're not that kind of company. So there could be a small amount due to them. The other amount is actually due to our local architects who had to spend a great deal of time putting the demolition package together, which is currently out to bid. It's not, we're waiting on that. That's got a little time to go. So we're up into the vicinity of $13,000-14,000 invested so far. If I could give an opinion, I mean, another way to do that is perhaps even, should you decide to auction it, put some reserve on it, that would at least cover that.
Right.
And then you would at least have the conscience to feel that, okay, we've got our money back from that part of it if we choose to sell it.
I just want to say that choosing to demolish a building like Lincoln or West Main, that's not an easy decision or a fun decision to make. When we decide to do that, we're not happy about that, but we believe that we're acting in the school district and the community's best interest. My grandfather graduated from West Main when it was a high school, so there's that family connection. But if I believe it's what's best for the community, that's the choice I have to make. And so we don't take it lightly, and it's not fun for us when we make those decisions. But with Kurt, I'm a little surprised by the sudden interest, honestly, in the building. I mean, for the last year putting out feelers, no one seemed interested, and now suddenly, within the last 3 days, everyone is interested in doing it. And there are a lot of interested people who want to see it saved, but what will take to save it is an interested buyer, someone that has money. And so that's my comments. Any further discussion?
Well, I'd like to see both buildings saved. I really would. I realize, I get it, the sentimental attachments to the gym and to the school. My gosh, you know, generations of citizens in this community attended those buildings, and I get the attachment that goes with that. But we as a group here, we've got a fiduciary responsibility to do the right thing. And, you know, Jeff put out a pretty convincing case that about 2016 or 2017, should things not change, we're going to be in some hardship here. So, again, we don't take these responsibilities lightly, and we don't take these decisions lightly. We don't want to tear these buildings down, but again, we've got to do what's best for the students. And again, going back to our mission, every decision that we make is for the benefit of our students in this community. So, again, I'm glad to see that, you know, we're giving this a second thought. Again, really pleased to see that we're getting some renewed interest from others in the community, because I agree with you, Bev. I guess I didn't see that before.
I think that was a universal thought in the room as we talked about it. Nobody wants to do that, to tear it down. But at the same time, there was no apparent interest and had not been for quite some time. And so just, it was a decision to make, because it would cost us, Dave, at least $30,000-$40,000 a year to take care of it. Plus, if it became
My estimation was, I have hard numbers, last year, a mild winter, we spent $55,000 to heat West Main and the gym by itself. And my guesstimation would be you may be able to save 33% of that by toning it down. It's not a real exact boiler in that place. So clearly you could tone that down, but just to board it up and keep it safe would cost a million.
That was the other thought. It would be a building that was abandoned there in the heart of downtown.
Yeah,
There's a lot that goes with
scariest
that.
part, obviously, when you have to maintain a building when it's not occupied, or, you know, as most of us know, you just can't leave something unoccupied and unattended and for a very short period of time, it begins to look pretty bad.
Any other discussion on suspending the abatement? If not, call the roll, please, Jeff.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickam?
Yes, motion carries. Anyone wish to advertise for auction? Or
Yes,
make a-
and I like the idea of a minimum, maybe $25,000 minimum on that, but I'd leave that up to
Yeah,
recommendation
I
of
think
staff.
typically the, Dave and the finance committee kind of iron
Yep.
those details out.
So I'd make that motion.
So
Yeah.
Curtis made a motion to advertise West Main building for Fifth Street Gym for auction.
I'll second that one too.
Tom seconds. Any discussion? If not, call the roll, please. Jeff?
I want to make sure, okay?
Yeah.
What I've got is authorized treasurer/business manager to advertise for auction and hold an auction as soon as practical with reserve bid of actual expenses incurred at this time.
Well, I think we're leaving the reserve bid up to.
We're leaving it up to you,
Finance
at least.
committee.
Cover them.
With reserve bid determined by staff.
The idea there is to cover what we have in it.
Correct.
Dave will get an estimate.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Okay, call the roll.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickam?
Yes, motion carries. Any further business? Not, we'll move on. Thank you, Ellen Cooper, the principal of Legend Elementary, for letting us be here tonight. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything.
Glad you're here. Always enjoy our opportunity to have the board here on your page. Next year.
Thank you, Ellen. And now board discussion. We can start with Tom.
I'd like to thank Jeff for the 5-year forecast. I know a lot of work goes into this, and I will point out that while it 5 years out doesn't look pretty, we're in a lot better shape than most districts in the state of Ohio financially, and this is the result of a lot of hard effort, smart decisions by a lot of different people. And it's happening as our academic performance is also climbing, which makes it even more impressive. So thanks to Jeff on that. In spite of my vote, I'm excited to see Roosevelt moving forward. I think it's a great concept with us in the county and LACA all there together. It's a beautiful building. I think when it's done, it'll be great, in spite of a few costs I don't like. And so I think that's going to be a real asset to the community. Football team won last week. Congratulations to the football team. I saw the cross-country team won an invitational. Congratulations to them. And with that, I'll pass.
Well, I was thrilled to see the auditor of our state say you guys didn't cheat. And, you know, when it seems like that's going on, because, you know, passing those tests are important. And the folks' bonuses and teachers, all that stuff depends upon that. And yet, there was some integrity here within the district. And so glad to see that, thrilled to see it. And thrilled to see I was down at the auction at West Main. And there was something for everybody in Newark to come by. It was an amazing amount of stuff. And it was a lot of fun to be there and to see all those things. And but mostly thrilled to know that we're going to try and do our best to save that building, because it does mean quite a bit to folks. I was not born here, nor did I go to school here. And I'm not going to say where I go to school, because my alma mater comes here every so often. But I do know that that those things mean a lot, and it's neat to see us have an opportunity to hold on to that building. It's something I think most of us had hoped for. So, Kurt.
I pass.
I'd just like to mention that I think one of the things that makes this community so strong are the collaborations that we have with everyone, with businesses, with parents, with the students, but particularly within the community itself. And you know, the fact that Liz and Jody made a special trip here to talk to us tonight about their concerns about what we were doing in this building, I look at that as strength within our community. The fact that we can listen to people, that we can, you know, take comments that are made by people who have genuine interest in doing the right thing, and then changing our course and having another look at these things. These are the things that make us strong in this school system. You know, since we last met, we had homecoming at Newark High School. And what a special time there that was. The students, to me, never looked better. And to see the parade before the football game, the dance was great. And again, those are the things that we need to take pride in this community. And I think that we do, but we need to step back and just say, yeah, you know, things are going pretty well here. And although by the year 2016, they may be a little bit different, but I have more confidence than maybe others that we'll find a way to make it through this. And we'll continue on with this positive change and this momentum that we've been able to establish to get us to a better place. I'll pass to you, Beth.
Joe.
I apologize if I come off sometime too sobering when it comes to budgets, but I take the Newark City School budget very seriously, as the board knows. I am much more frugal, as the staff knows, with the Newark City School budget than I am with my wife or my granddaughter, okay? I take my job seriously. I don't mean to be too sobering, but I don't want the community to think that we are a wealthy district and that we can just open the checkbook and do anything and everything that they request, because that's not possible in today's economic environment. But this district and this board, and I was sitting here after I spoke on the budget, and I was looking at it left to right. It's a very well put together board from the standpoint of having the students' interest at heart. When you have Tom Blind, whose children went through Newark City Schools, so he's got some history here. You got Mr. Carr, whose wife is a teacher here and his kids are in school district here. You got Mr. Harden, whose kids, part of them have went through school here, part of them are still in school here. You got Mr. Bybee, whose kids finished school here. You got Mrs. Nickham, whose kids are in school here. You have me, who has a granddaughter that goes to this very school, okay, the one that we're sitting in tonight. So this board and Doug Ute, I'm going to tell you right now, he may not have a kid in this school because all of his kids are off to college and he's going broke from it, like most kids that go to college. But Mr. Ute has always, the 3.5 years that I've been able to serve with him, made decisions that put the kids first. He said that in his interviews. I was in on those interviews. He said that's how he made decisions, and he not only said that, but he believes it and lives that. And it's a privilege and honor to work with this board. It's a privilege and honor to work in this community because the community pulls together for the kids, top, bottom, down, sideways. And here I go again crying Jeff. But I love Newark City Schools, I love the district, and I love this board. And if I'm too sobering, it's because I want you to pay attention that we're doing everything we can to stretch your tax dollar in Newark City Schools and still give your kids a quality education, including my granddaughter.
I'd have just shut up after that, I think. But I would say I do have a son that goes to Ohio State Newark, living here in town. So I would share this with you. A couple things tonight. I want to point out we appreciate the South Newark Civic Association. They passed a resolution that I would share with the board and the community in support of the construction of an outdoor shelter/classroom at Ben Franklin Elementary School there, and anything they could do to support that they would appreciate, and we appreciate what those good folks are doing, particularly at Ben Franklin. They've really partnered with our elementary over there. It's a good deal. Also, I would make mention that the 8th grade trip is being planned right now. As all of you know, that we've been very fortunate to have a donor that sees to it that our students on a free and reduced lunch can go to the DC at an affordable cost. That we need a bridge from Mr. Mitchell's passing until some money becomes available that he's been so gracious to continue that trip out. And so I'm going to make a mention that there's a lot of people helping us, but the Licking County Foundation has set up a fund. So those of you who want to donate to the Licking County Foundation for the 8th grade trip, you can contact the Licking County Foundation, and we would appreciate any help that we can get. And Anna, thank you. As I see Anna from the advocate sitting here, that article spurred some calls that you did. So thank you for calling attention to that. We appreciate that. Also, and keeping in line with the financial theme, I think you know that we feel like we've been good stewards of the funds here in Newark, and I'm going to continue to bring up in 2009. In May of 2009, this district passed a levy for 5 years and said it would probably last 3. They may be back in 3. Well, we're in year 4 now, beyond that, and I think you saw from Jeff's forecast. And I think the important thing to bring out there is that we're continue to change what our philosophy is. How is it cost neutral, or how does it save money? And we've been able to change, such as our laptop initiative at the high school, and we're certainly leaner on the administration side than we were 5 or 6 years ago, and things like that. Our staff, we have more students in a classroom than in the past, so everybody's kind of pitched in to make this happen. And it doesn't take you long to research. If you can research where I went to high school, you can research other schools' 5-year forecast here and see how we compare to a lot of other schools. And so I'm really proud of that. Our building project continues to move forward, and I will tell you that we're just about done with the actual renovation / construction part of it. The high school, we should see an end at about in January, at least that part of, and then with the paving project that we're planning now for the summer, there's no need to try to do that paving project at the high school before school's out, and so then that project will be complete. Tim mentioned our audit. We figured we would get audited because we have a high mobility rate, the highest around, and the highest in our comparable districts at 28%. But I would tell you that when you look at our mobility rate with comparable districts, we stand at the top of that at 28%. And then turn around and look at our test scores. We stand at the top or near the top in almost every category in our comparable districts on how we're achieving. So we're doing what we say, check those excuses at the door. We can't control a lot of things where kids move to and those kind of things, but we can control what happens in our buildings, and our administrators and our staff and all of our staff and our students are doing a fantastic job. You're sitting in a building that the performance index was over 105%. And if you compare this building we're sitting in here to other similar districts, they blow them off the map, and we compete very strongly with schools in Licking County, elementary schools. So Ellen, your leadership is much appreciated. Thank you. And your building looks fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks again to Ellen for letting us use Legend Elementary. Thank you to Jason Key, our transportation supervisor, for securing that Ohio Clean Diesel grant. Who knew it even existed? I didn't. So Jason did that. That's awesome. Thank you to everyone that worked on the strategic committee. That's a full day, and that's a lot of tedious work, and I appreciate everyone in the community and on staff that worked so hard on that and helped set the tone for everything that we do every day in the district. And the thing I would leave you with is that grad rate committee meets this Wednesday. So, and with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Kurt has moved, Tim is second,
Second.
and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Bybee?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Nickum? Mrs. Nickum?
Second time tonight.
It's a mistypo. I gotta get that correct.
Yes. Motion adjourned. It's the hair.